So I get a lot of clients that come in that have never hunted elk in their whole life. And then all of a sudden, they hear that scream, and he's just trembling like crazy. They never forget that. Let's put it this way. An Instagram account was put on my phone, and a name was made, and then the phone was handed to me and go, now you're on social media. It's important for us as outdoorsmen, hunters, fishermen, to set good examples. And that's kind of how I do my hunting, is I find those general areas or places I can buy over the counter, which is a different strategy because you talk to some guys and they'll have multiple points in multiple states. It was a very scary situation. I had a lot of great hunts this year, but I learned a huge lesson on that one. This is Dave Beronio, and you're listening to Living Country in the City.
Y'all ready for your dose of flyover state spirit? Straight from the concrete jungle? Well, put down your latte and pull on your boots. It's time for Living Country in the City.
All right, we are recording another wonderful evening here at the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo. It's always a struggle for me to say the word conservation because I keep trying to say Conversation Expo. But we are here. I am hanging out with Mr. Dave Beronio, Hollywood Davo.
That's That's it. How are you, brother?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. It's been a good show.
So before we get started, I just want to say a big thank you to Sawyer Products for their continual support of the podcast. They have been, for over a year now, been helping support this podcast. They make great products, great lightweight stuff for the backcountry. Check them out if you're looking for water filtration, insect repellent, sunscreen, or first aid at Sawyer.com. Calm. So yeah, why don't you give the fine folks listening a little bit of background about yourself? Just how did you kind of get into all of this, get your start in hunting, the outdoors?
I was born into a hunting family. My dad, my mom came over from Norway. She was more of the gathering type, I guess. She was raised on fisk and berries, that they used to pick and milking goats and everything else. But
that sounds like the biggest BS story in the world. I'm just, she was raised on goats and berries and
in the high country of Norway. So my dad, was raised in California back before it got overpopulated, and used to. We drive by buildings and everything that used to be pheasant fields and whatnot. And so, but Dad, avid outdoorsman. My uncles, Byron and Mike, both avid outdoorsmen as well. And a lot of their hunting was subsistence. They'd get a 50-pound bag of rice, and anything that they shot out of the air, off the ground, fished for, or picked from the rocks when the tides were down along the Pacific coast, was what they lived on. Crabbing and abalone, or pheasants and ducks, and pig to deer. So they basically they ate game for living, especially going through college when they were on a college budget. But being a part of that lifestyle as I was growing up, I just had a passion for the mountains. Starting out at a young age, shooting pheasants with a BB gun, or shooting at pheasants with a BB gun as they fly, and then my dad or uncles would blow them out of the sky. But so then I just had this passion for the outdoors and just being kind of alone in the outdoors. That's where I feel closest to my creator. So then, as growing up through athletics and everything else, I didn't get to hunt as much as I wanted, but I did fish a lot. And then I got into before my college years, and it was then I really dove into hunting and the outdoors because I had more time and I had the ability to drive myself wherever I wanted. Mm-hmm. So any time that I had was a lot of it was spent in the outdoors. And then it was just over the years, it's progressively I've found other ways to be more immersed in it. So it's the television show with Outback Outdoors. and the hunts and everything I got to do with these gentlemen, and then the guiding. And so for R&K Hunting Company or for Fraser Safari, or, just finding different ways to stay connected, to be in the outdoors and, make a living at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I mean, no one can say that you haven't fully immersed your life in the outdoors. And I think that's where so many of us kind of want to be, is just finding any way to, whether it's hunting or camping or fishing or whatever it is, just completely immerse ourselves in the outdoors. I mean, shoot, how many times am I at the office and I'm just sitting there daydreaming about bucks or, trout, or honestly just throwing out a tent next to my truck out on a mountain somewhere and just enjoying a campfire. I think it's
taking the time to do that. I think there's so much of society that is removed from the outdoors or from, more primal roots, our hunting, our fishing, where our natural food comes from, and I think seeing people in our society, in our busy, fast-paced society, testing, the outdoors or giving it a try or, just experiencing it for the first time and then taking it up. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a cool thing because there's a lot of it that's going, as we go through the generations, we start losing. Yeah. Losing that a natural instinct, I guess.
It's tough. I think may have told this story on the podcast before, but I was on a road trip last year around May, and I was coming into Salt Lake actually, and I was waiting to meet up with some friends, and I just went to like a local park to kind of take a little nap up against a tree and just enjoy being outside for a minute. And I took the time and I just sat and observed everyone, like all the families and stuff, and just watching them. And I get stoked on just about any animal in the world, whatever I see, but like watching their interaction with like the ducks and the ponds and how they would, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but like that was there for them.
That was as outdoors as it got.
That was as backcountry. That was backcountry for them. Like, and not saying that in a way to talk down about them, because it's just not everyone has that experience, but it's such a weird thing, because even when I was in the most city I've ever been, like I'd still go out camping with family. It wasn't like my life centered around it, but it was more like a summer vacation thing. But it's so amazing to see that and realize like this is the only experience some people have outdoors is a cement pond, man-made cement pond with, some ducks they're throwing bread at, and that's it. They're never gonna go out of that comfort zone. And I was sitting there and I was like tripping myself out. I was probably thinking about it way too much.
But that's something. I mean, when you think about that, and you try to put yourself into their position, into their life, seeing their kid that is feeding bread to this animal that has probably lived on this concrete pond its whole life, but that's a wild animal to this kid, and or the adult. That may be the only thing they really see. I love guiding. I love bringing people into my environment, and a lot of the people that I take out, are avid hunters. But we'll get a lot of clients that come in that have never hunted elk in their whole life. And so I'll get a bow hunter from, say the Midwest or the East that's never seen an elk in the wild or, heard an elk in the wild. And you get them out and start hiking, and then all of a sudden, they hear that scream, and it sends the chill up their. I mean, it's like the first time ever. And then you call this bull into 5-7 yards, and the guy can't. I mean, he's just trembling like crazy. They never forget that. That is an experience of a lifetime, and that's one thing special about doing what I do and guiding, is being able to give these experiences to people. I don't have to be the one pulling the trigger. I don't have to hunt. I always have a freezer full of meat from, say, friends hunting or my clients hunting or whatnot. but just to be out there and share that experience with people is passing it on.
Yeah.
It truly is magic.
I mean, there's always going to be something special about, clicking the release or pulling the trigger on an animal. Like, there's always going to be some special connection there, but so much of that that's pretty much the smallest part of the experience. Like, it's the most cliche thing in the world to say. I know it is, but it's an awesome part, but it's the smallest part of the experience. So you have this whole vast hunting experience that you can still get by taking someone else out, by sharing that with someone. And especially, if you've already filled your tag or, you didn't draw anything or you just aren't in a place where you're going to go out and go crazy hunting this year, it's an opportunity to get that experience for a lot less money typically, too.
Right.
But, yeah, it's a cool thing, and I'm excited. Like, even just taking my nephew out and, I'm still so new at this. Like, I barely know what I'm doing when I'm going out, but I try and share as much as I can with him, and it's just cool to, see we're out predator hunting and just watching him be able to take a shot on a coyote, and we didn't end up connecting, but it was just cool to call one in for him and be part of that. I'm like, there's personal victory in that,
Yeah.
But so I've followed you for a little while on Instagram, and I kind of connected the dots in funny different ways.
There's a lot of dots out there.
It's very, very different because I've followed you on Instagram, but then I didn't connect the dots because I've interviewed Trevin before, and we connected really well, and we've chatted a bunch, and he sent me the Too Close for Comfort Part 2.
2.0,
2.0, and he's like, hey, what do you think of this? This is what we want to do for Full Draw, and I kind of gave him a little bit of feedback, but I didn't make that connection between you and that, and then the Initial Ascent guys as well, because I'm good buddies with them, and I've talked with them a bunch, and so these three different directions, and then finally last night it all kind of clicked. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's that guy.
Yeah. Well, and, I think I commented yesterday, I started following you because of the Instagram name. I was like, Hollywood Davo. I'm like, he's probably not from Hollywood, but I got to follow him just to find out at least. And I'm like, oh, yeah, he's definitely not from. So I know how much you love that nickname. You chose it yourself. You were like, you know what?
Let's put it this way. An Instagram account was put on my phone, and a name was made, and then the phone was handed to me and go, now you're on social media. Because I was so adamant. Trevin, he's like, Beronio, you got to get on Facebook. You got to get on Instagram. I'm like, no, I don't need to do any social media. He goes, no, it'll help with the show. And this was a number of years ago.
Yeah.
And then, being adamant that I wouldn't do it, our camera guy at the time, Grady, he put it together on there. He and Dustin Etheridge were messing around with me, and next thing you know, like, what do we call you? and then that showed up. So yeah, it's a Hollywood Dave, OOO for Outback Outdoors, and I don't think I'll ever be able to get rid of that name. I'm kind of stuck with it.
So now's your chance to any good stories about Trevin that we should.
Yeah, no. I think Trevin will tell you his own story.
Yeah, no, we've had
a great time together, great career with Outback Outdoors. It was roughly 10 years that we spent, doing Outback Outdoors. I've known him for a number of years before that as well. I think 14 years now. But I decided to, not move off. Well, basically, start doing my own thing as Dave Beronio and not doing television or anything else. Spend a lot more time guiding and doing volunteer work, which is such a gratifying thing.
Yeah.
For people that are new to the hunting industry or to hunting or to nature and the outdoors, I think one of the best things they can do is volunteer for these conservation organization groups, volunteer with your local department, your state Department of Wildlife. There are events like, transplants, Animal captures and relocations. There's
We've got
capturing animals for collars and everything
sheep
else.
count coming up a bighorn sheep count coming up in Southern California that I did last year.
What a great way to be out there and to learn about these animals. And like in Nevada last week, we captured 50 antelope, and those 50 antelope were transported up to the Yakima Indian Reservation, the Yakima Nation up in Washington, where there once, before 2001, there were no antelope up there.
Oh, wow.
They came down, they picked up 99 antelope, and that herd grew to over 300. And then this last year, they needed to augment that herd, so they came down and got another 50. And then later that week, we went out and did bighorn sheep captures.
Oh, wow.
And so you got the helicopter and the net gunner, and then the mugger, and they captured these sheep. They put hobbles on them, put blindfolds, put them in nets, and then lightly drop them down to the crew of the biologist.
That's so crazy.
And as a volunteer, I get in there, it's hands-on, it's helping them, it's listening to the biologist, being not intimate, but close. Bleep. Okay, you got to edit that one out. No, being close, and really in the space of these animals and just seeing how their bodies are and seeing how they work and listening to the biologist about, how they are in the mountain. And for somebody that's new or somebody that's spent their life, in the outdoors, it's a learning experience. And those sheep, a number of them went to augment an existing herd, but then 31 of them we let go in the Bloody Runs in Nevada, and so basically it's a brand new herd in a brand new mountain range, and it won't be probably for another 10 years that there may be one tag issued, but it's a new herd and it's something that I was a part of and I can look back on and say I made a difference.
That's so cool. That's just it's value for them, it's value for you. There's no downside to doing that. There really isn't. I mean, and like you said, there's so many opportunities. Find these conservation organizations. Most of them have Facebook groups, like for the local chapters, whatever they are, whether it's BHA or RMEF or, Wild Sheep Foundation, Mule Deer Foundation. We're here at the Hunt Expo, and it's sponsored by the Mule Deer Foundation. All of these places, you can find groups online and sign up for email lists. They send out notices. You can call your local fish and game department, ask when the next opportunity to volunteer is, And I actually, at the sheep count we did last year, it was an interesting experience because there was a lot of, probably 75% of the people that show up for those in Southern California want nothing to do with hunting. And so it gives you some interesting opportunities to have conversations with people that would typically be vehemently, anti what you're doing. Like, we're talking full on, like, hardcore, I hate you because you hunt vegans. They're out there to save the animals, and so are we. And it forces you to realize you have something in common with them.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think it's a great platform for both of you to understand each side and understand that there's a lot of animals that won't get hunted from these certain areas, but if you don't have hunters and outdoorsmen, you have $0 to put back on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
The conservation organizations, some of these, these hunting groups and volunteers spend more time and money to help with habitat, to help with transplants, whatever research, whatever it may be, than all those other organizations put together. And if you don't have hunting and outdoors men and women, none of that gets taken care of. You have no Department of Wildlife to manage and do research and set quotas and manage them through the best managing tool, which is hunting. Well,
people, I don't know where people think this money comes from. It's not PETA donating it. They're not cute little cats and dogs, so PETA doesn't want anything to do with them other than to tell you how much they hate you. So I don't know where these people think the money from this comes. It's it's not coming out of the general tax fund, that's for sure.
Well,
I mean,
for example, the Pittman-Robertson Act, 1937, Robertson from Virginia, Pittman from Nevada, signed by Roosevelt.
Yep.
That money is allocated for such things as habitat or research and biology, everything else. And each state has the opportunity to put in for this money and use it for that. And
it should be noted that was something that was lobbied for by hunters. This wasn't some mandate coming down. Roosevelt didn't go, come out of nowhere and say, I'll be damned if, you're keeping all your money, whatever. This was in a time when people did not have a lot of money to throw around. But hunters saw this opportunity, and they saw what was happening to their wildlife and their heritage, and they were seeing it disappear. And so, this was not some government mandate. This was literally people with a passion for wildlife.
It's an excise tax on firearms, ammunition, pistols, archery gear, and it's that 11% tax that goes into Pittman-Robertson.
Mm-hmm.
That can be allocated for things to benefit nature, animals,
and
habitat.
It's billions. It is billions of dollars, like unfathomable amounts of money that, and you can never have enough money as far as I'm concerned to save wildlife. It's like there's always more projects that can be done, more work, more effort that can be put in. But like that's an fairly what can I even reference that to that I have like a billion of? It's just it's such an insane number, but it's so important that people realize that, and I don't think enough hunters realize that, let alone non-hunters.
Right.
And we could be so much better advocates for hunting,
being more involved
if we're educated about that. And, I think there's definitely a move. There's been a push, just from what I understand about the history of things. But more recently, I'm obviously new to all of this, and only the past few years I've really been involved in. But from just what I've seen, I feel like there's a big push, for bringing new people in, for educating people about the really important aspects of what we're doing. It's not just, I say it all the time, it's not just beers and deers. Don't get me wrong, that's fun too. But, there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, it's deep, and it's a lot of people with passion, and it's just putting our time and our efforts where they make the biggest impact.
Oh, without a doubt. But yeah, so, guys, whoever's listening, take this time, call up, write down a note, find your local BHA group on Facebook, whatever, for your local state, sign up for some email lists, whether, if there's an animal that you love and are passionate about, I guarantee there's like a conservation organization dedicated to that. There's, the Wild Steelhead Coalition, there's something for sheep, there's something for goats, there's something for whitetail, there's something for mule deer, there's elk, there's this, that, the other. You can get pretty niche with some of these groups. Like, you can find a project. There's no excuse for not being able to find some way to give back.
What an experience to be a part of it too.
Oh yeah. And it's not like it's a chore to do. How many of us would be spending our time? We choose to spend our time out in the mountains chasing animals anyways. Most of this stuff happens when you can't be hunting that animal regardless. It's all off-season stuff 90% of the time. So, okay, give up an afternoon of coyote hunting and go hike in the mountain and learn about something that's probably going to help you anyway.
Yeah, you want an education on an animal, you volunteer for time with the Department of Wildlife and help out those biologists. You will get, there's a great resource to tap into there.
Well, and it's amazing, even in the face of all of this, you'll still get people that come to you and say, well, you just do this so you can kill more of them. It's like, well, in a roundabout way, yes, I guess that is technically true, but that's not what it's about. Like, how would you respond to someone that says that?
Well, we will be hunting these animals because they will need to be managed, whether it be antelope, deer, elk, bears, mountain lions, wolves. Animals have to be managed. We've encroached on them, and it's kind of our duty to, help them on their numbers so that their populations can be sustained through time. And I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, you're just putting them out there to go kill them." But you know what? I would say 99% of the volunteer work that I've done, that I've helped with, I will never hunt those areas or be a part of, a hunt that goes in those areas. It's just the fact that I've made a difference. Those animals are out there. Somebody may hunt them one day, or if the management practice, if the scientific numbers come through and it doesn't look like there can be a hunt, the department's not going to put together a hunt that's going to, put a species into jeopardy.
Yeah.
Like I said, hunting is the best management tool that we have out there for these animals, and it's a necessity, basically.
No, I mean, like you were talking about the work you did with the sheep and how they were released, and I feel like the sheep specifically are probably the best example of that. Is, you talk to someone, and 90% of the people that are volunteering or donating for sheep, there's no chance in this lifetime that they will ever draw a tag for that. Like, there's a few ways you can maybe grab one, but the likelihood is pretty dang low. And so, it's I don't know. It's one of those funny things. I kind of laugh and shake my head. I'm like, all right, this conversation's gonna go for a while now when I'm approached by those people. But important conversations to have, important things to do.
It is, and it's important for us as outdoorsmen, hunters, fishermen, to set good examples, to be educated and speak clearly and not be rude, and just set a good example for what who we are as hunters. Be responsible for what's going to happen in our future.
So tell me about this last season. What? How did this last season go for you?
It was a busy season for me. I started my own hunting. I had an Idaho elk tag, and then I had a Utah deer tag, and then I got right into my guiding. So I spent nearly 2 months up there in Wyoming for the R&K Hunting Company, which I've been doing for getting on close to a decade now. And then I had a couple late season hunts. So I spent from basically at the end of August to middle of November out in the mountains.
It's a tough life to live, but somebody's got to do it.
But somebody has to do it. It's definitely a good way to spend my time.
Okay, so what's coming up for this year?
Well, I'm continuing to do the Train to Hunt events. I've got a event qualifier coming up here March 23rd and 24th in California. Okay. And then on the 25th, I fly to New Zealand, and I go guide down there for about a month and a half.
Oh, wow.
And I turn around and fly back, and I've got plenty of weddings to perform, because that's what I do in and around
were talking about that last night, right?
Guiding. So I've got a number of weddings to do, and hopefully I qualify for the national championships of Train to Hunt.
For Train to Hunt, not the national championships for wedding officiation.
That's right.
Totally different competitions.
Totally different. And then it's right back to guiding. And it really depends on what tags I draw this year. But because of my commitment to the guiding, I tend to do most of my hunting during the late season, in November when I'm not going to be out there.
Do you rely a lot on over the counter, or just as you kind of try and fill in spaces, or do you put in for a lot of draws?
For Nevada, I put in, and I built points for years, and I hunt, but and I do the same in Wyoming, but I don't play the points game, in any of these other states. I look for areas that have a, really high opportunity draw. I look for areas that I can buy over the counter and get away from people by putting the boots on the ground and going long distances. And that's kind of how I I do my hunting. Is I find those general areas or places I can buy over the counter. Which is a different strategy because you talk to some guys and they'll have multiple points in multiple states. And they play that game.
I'm still figuring. I'm guess this is my third year putting in, and I'm still figuring out that game and all the different hunts I got to put in for and where I want to apply. And there's no rest for the wicked, man. Like you come January, you better be ready to if you want to get those points in, like you better be ready to be applying like every couple of weeks if you're the type of person that wants to hunt all the animals, all the places. And it's
or you can do it like I do and find those general areas and put those hunts together, plan those out.
And I think you've got to find a good balance to where, okay, maybe if there's something you do want to hunt that's going to take some time, like if you are passionate about hunting sheep, there's some opportunities where, maybe like New Mexico or something where you've got a chance, on your first year, but you got to think ahead. So maybe that's your one thing and you can focus on that. And then you're like, I still want to hunt elk and deer. And there's so many opportunities that are a pretty much guaranteed draw or they're over the counter. You can do them every year. They're not that expensive. And, it depends on where you live too. You may, like me in California, I was talking with some guys about this from Wyoming and they're like, it's tough to get big game in there. I'm like, elk draw, antelope is tough, but deer, there's definitely units that are difficult to draw, but you can hunt deer every year in California. We got some decent deer. Population's starting to thin out, but I won't say anything about that. That's a little frustrating.
That's another rabbit hole.
Yeah, man, I could complain about that all day long, but yeah, no, it's dependent on where you live and what you want to hunt, but you just got to find out what's important to you and figure out your strategy and hopefully tag along, especially if you're new, tag along with someone that knows what they're doing and they can provide you some direction maybe for the first year on where to put in. And
there's a lot of different resources out there, especially coming to an event like the Hunt Expo here in Salt Lake City.
Oh, yeah.
You walk through here, and I guarantee if you're willing to talk to people and ask questions, you're going to come out of here with a boatload of information.
Well, and if you're looking and if you're the type of person like you want to maybe look at a guided hunt or something for your first hunt, which is a great opportunity. It's not for everyone, but you want to do a guided hunt for your first hunt, you will learn more than just about anything in this world. And, you want to talk about opportunities to hunt just about anything. There's a booth for every location, every spot, and everyone's got some deal for God knows how much off. But you can see the pretty well the breadth of opportunities when you come to something like this. It's like you said, it's very overwhelming.
It's cool,
but it's cool to see, and it's like you said, there's a lot of cool people here. I was just talking about this is. Most of the people in this room are pretty decent people, They're good people. They're out. They love hunting, You're going to run into a few people that are just kind of, they don't, if we're being honest here. But for the most part, you go up and you talk. You can walk up to just anyone that's walking by us right now, introduce yourself, start talking about hunting, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, I got this, big old buck this one time. And, they'll start telling stories, and it's a great time, But... So speaking of hunting stories, anything exciting from this year?
There was a lot of exciting stories, but one that definitely stands out in my mind was I took this person with no names mentioned out on a hunt, and it's important as guides to make sure that our clients are always safe because not knowing their backgrounds, really, they can tell you they're good at this and that, but until you see them out there and really judge them for yourself. And as a guide, we take a lot of risk. We're around guns all the time. We're around sharp objects all the time. And, it's something we always have to pay attention to. And I had a client this year who was ejecting we were on some elk,
Mm-hmm.
and the elk had moved off. So always make sure that the chamber is clear.
Yeah.
And the only way with this rifle is to put it on fire and then open the bolt.
Okay.
Some of them have a dual safety. This gun didn't, and so when this person went to put it on fire, finger was on the trigger. and the 6.5 Creedmoor with a that was ported went off within just a couple feet of my head, and it was a very scary situation. I had a lot of great hunts this year, but I learned a huge lesson on that one. And after that, we hunted the next day, and I carried the rifle. Didn't make a big deal about it.
Mm-hmm.
That day was a little bit tough, but I didn't make a big deal about it. It was a huge learning lesson for this person.
Yeah.
But after that, I carried the rifle. I never said that I was going to carry the rifle. I just checked it, put it over my, put it on my pack, and we went out and she killed a really nice bull afterwards. But I was in control of everything that happened after that. But just a learning lesson that I appreciated, but was extremely scary in the same.
So that actually brings up a good question. So, say somebody's going out, and like I said, maybe they do want to do their first guided hunt, What are some things you prefer that this person, whether it's gear that they bring themselves or something they obviously, like, aside from, yes, you should probably know how to shoot your weapon, but like what things do you see as you guide that make you think like, okay, I need to make sure people are aware of this and conscious of this for the next trip? Like you said, stuff like, obviously rifle safety, the absolute basics of that stuff. But
well, they're spending a lot of money to come on a hunt. And I think one of the most important things, around being able to shoot and their gear is their fitness, their personal health. I've hunted with a number of people that just couldn't. You're hunting elk, and you got to be a little quick sometimes, and mobile, and I've had some people out there that just couldn't do hardly anything, and it really restricts their opportunity and their ability to close the deal. We have great success and great property throughout the R&K Hunting Company, but a lot of my clients that come back following years come back in better shape because they realized I don't want to waste that money because my body kept me, restricted me from getting that extra 100 yards in a timely manner.
Yeah.
Or, actually hiking to a place that you could shoot a mule deer that was bedded. So I think one of the best things that somebody can do is put the effort into their fitness as best as they can, whether they're walking every day or whether they put a weighted pack on and go hike, or just be conscientious that you're going to be probably going to higher elevation and spending time out in the elements, and you're going to be exhausting your body. So you better prepare for it as best as you can. You don't have to be a top athlete out there, but if you're going to spend that money, you better take the time to be in a little bit better shape.
Well, and like you said, you don't have to be the top athlete, but like think about what you're going to go do and train for that. Don't sit there and doing barbell curls all day long. Yeah, it may help you pick up your pack when it's weighted down, but it's not going to do you much good on the mountain. So be conscious of what how you're training, what you're training as you do that too. Like, hey man, it's fun to do chest and arm day all day long, but there's only so much that helps with.
Well, like Stephen Don with Elevation Fitness, he said, Dave, when we've been doing some train to hunts together, he says, I've been putting workouts together for people that are functional training for what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And if you're doing a lot of chest and bis and tris, but you're, neglecting your legs, well, what are the different functions that you're doing on the mountain? Mm-hmm. You're doing squats, you're doing lunges, you're crawling, there's a lot of different things that you're doing. And if you're not doing some of those movements in the gym, well, you're not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
You might look good but going out there, but after that, you're going to get passed up on the mountain.
I mean, and it's, you don't want to neglect anything, basically. Like, you're not saying that, like, okay, yeah, whatever you do, don't train your chest. Yes, you do use those muscles as well when you're doing stuff on the mountain, but like you said, functional fitness is a very important thing. And you can be the most ripped dude in the world, but if you can't make it up that mountain, you're not getting that elk.
Yeah.
Or you could just be like me and just somehow never seem to get that cardio working. I got to figure that out. It was
discipline, man.
Colorado was rough this year, man. Like, it was. I've never felt like I was suffocating so much in my life. I did not acclimate whatsoever to that elevation until probably the last day.
Yeah.
It was rough, but
lesson learned. Now you move into
absolutely.
next year with a little bit more.
Well, and it's tough.
Training.
Elevation training's tough because it's like short of, well, just going to elevation and spending time there. There's, you can get your heart rate up and prep as much as possible, but elevation training's it's always the big thing. Like, you hear everyone talking about when it comes to fitness is, I use a mask. Oh, I do this. Oh, I do that. I'm like, still not being at elevation, and it's like you can get as close as you can, but I don't know. I think that just means I need to move to the mountains. That's what it is.
Find more time in the mountains. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool.
So is there, when somebody, obviously, you want people to select your guide service, but as people are selecting guides, like, I've heard horror stories about somebody selecting a guide service being like, this was the biggest mistake of my life. You just picked either someone dishonest or that kind of got ripped off. What are some key things that somebody would look for when trying to select a quality guide?
I think just do your research. You come to shows like this and you talk to a lot of different outfitters. Then go back in and talk to people that, try to find those people that have hunted with that person. One of the worst things, for a client is to go out there and have such polar opposite personalities. And like, once again, going back to the financial aspect, you're paying a lot of money to go. You better do your research and talk to those that have gone out there and have been successful with this guide. Find somebody that's reputable. At the end of the day, just like anything else, whether you're buying a vehicle or, searching for a girlfriend, you better find out a little background on that person.
Oh, man. So, looking back, all of this time hunting, all of this experience you have, if you had to distill this down to maybe a few key, just important things, some of the more important things you've learned in your time hunting, what would you, and if you need a second to think about it, but some of just over your time hunting, whether it's about hunting, whether it's about life, what are some of the things you feel like some lessons you've learned over the years?
Oh man,
that maybe hunting has taught you. Let's go at it from that angle.
That hunting has taught me. Well, as I'm in the position I am now, just discipline and focus to, really be the best out there that I can be, not against anybody else, whether it's trained to hunt or guiding. But I think the biggest thing is just appreciation for what's really out there. Appreciation for time spent in the field. Appreciate for the animals we pursue, and their magnificence. They spend, their lives in the mountains and survive, and they don't have the luxuries of life. And you think, man, I appreciate the type of animal that is, and the appreciation for the friends and the camaraderie and the people that we meet along the way. All my friends here in the hunting industry, friends that don't hunt, and what I think just soaking that all in and being aware and being conscientious about that.
No, absolutely. So say somebody came up to you and said, Hollywood Dave, whether it is I'm from the city or I just did not grow up in a hunting family or environment, and I'm like, it looks cool. Like, I want to do it, but I just don't have the background. I don't have the resources. Like, this is a little intimidating. I don't think I should do this. What I want to, but I don't know. What would you, what encouragement would you give that person, or what maybe advice would you give that person?
I think one of the biggest things for somebody new is to make friends with people that hunt and find out why they hunt. If somebody wants to get into it because it's cool to go hunt, what is the real reason you want to do it? Is it because you want to hunt for the meat, because you want to eat meat that is 100% natural, non-GMO, or is it because you want to go out and just kill something and feel primal, or is it because you want to be in the outdoors and have that adventure? What is it about hunting that you really want to accomplish? And then you need to go down that path. If it's just being in the outdoors and seeing animals, go do something with the Department of Wildlife and go do that. But if it's truly hunting for what it is, to go out there, to kill, to process, to pack it off the mountain, to put it in your freezer because you want to eat, then you need to find people that's their passion, that's what they love to do. I eat game meat probably 5-6 days a week, when I'm home. And it's something that my freezer's always full, and I'm proud that I live that way. I'm proud that I eat that way.
I've said it a million times, there's nothing more rewarding. Like, I was just sitting around, I'd made my javelina. I got a good recipe from Jeremiah Dowdy for barbacoa that he used on, like, bobcat and coyote. And I'm like, okay, if it works on bobcat and coyote, it should take care of this javelina pretty well. And I made it, and I invited my whole family up and made this whole family dinner. And there's just this moment when I'm sitting there and I'm looking around, and I'm like, this is, an animal I hunted, and I'm sharing it with my family, and everyone's just sitting smiling and talking like any other dinner. But I've never been so proud. That it all came together about it in my life. It all came together, and just seeing the results, those results are what stick with me so much more than pulling the trigger. Like, I remember the moment afterwards and when I harvested and got it and skinned it, but like, that's such a reward afterwards, being able to share it with people.
From the time you decide to go on a hunt to the application or just buying the tag or even not, and going on, pulling the trigger is such a small part of the whole experience.
Oh yeah, it brings such a nice rounded, not even a conclusion to that whole story, but it's a bit of a conclusion in its own way of like, this is the final end. It's this meal, and it ties up the experience, and it allows you to kind of really look back, and it gives you a good opportunity to look back at everything. And I'll tell you what, I eat a lot more though when it's something I killed, man. I would sit and eat that all day. But awesome. So we already talked about Instagram, but where can people find you online?
Right there. I have Facebook, but I haven't even opened it up for 2.5 years. So anything you see on there is way old. Instagram at Hollywood Dave 00. That's for Outback Outdoors, but even though I'm not there, it's still stuck.
There you go.
And that's pretty much where you can find me, or look at the R&K Hunting Company or Fraser Safari down in New Zealand. You'll probably see me running around someplace.
There you go. Well, I'll make sure to link to all of this on the show notes page. I'll post that up afterwards. But dude, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're about to run out of here to go get some folks married tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So thanks for taking the time and sitting down.
It's good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too.
Thank you.
All right, y'all, that'll do it for episode 96 of Living Country in the City. A big thank you to Dave for taking the time during the expo to hop on and chat. Make sure y'all check out the show notes page at livingcountryinthecity.com/96. Get links to everything we talked about in today's episode. And until next time, Keep it country, y'all.
Thank y'all for listening to Living Country in the City. Get show notes and check out the blog, product reviews, events, and more at livingcountryinthecity.com.